It's July 1st, 2025. And is there a mysterious satellite watching us from space that no one knows who it belongs to? Or is it just space junk? This is Inverted World Live. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Inverted World Live, and I am Shane Cashman, your host. It is 10 o'clock at night Eastern Time. We're about to get into it. This is a call-in show. The link to call in is pinned in the chats below, both Rumble and YouTube. If you've had an encounter with something strange that you just can't explain, anything, or if it could be from sleep paralysis, UFOs, we've had missing time stories, cryptids, give us a call. We want to hear about it. We're going to talk to you about it, ask you some questions. And it could also be you've heard something me or Brandon have talked about, or another caller, and you have an idea. Let's hear it. Give us a call. Like I said, Brandon is in the room. Brandon, what's up?
What is going on, Shane? What's up, everybody? Brandon Miner. Great to see you guys. Let's get weird.
Oh, man. We got a weird one. And again, call in, please. The link to call in is below. You see that across the screen. We had a lot of great callers last night. A lot of people didn't get to, and I hope we get to you tonight. Before we get into this Black Knight satellite, I did just want to say a follow-up to something I've been talking about a lot. I don't remember if I actually talked about it on this show last night, but I did talk about on IRL, and that was the AI regulation thing, which I was in the big, beautiful bill. I was worried about that. It would have allowed it would have had no regulations on AI for 10 years by law. It would be a federal law that would have overridden states' rights. It's gone. That is no more. That is a very good thing, in my opinion. Like we were talking about how fast it's been accelerating and changing. 10 years is infinity with AI. So I think that's actually a really good thing. But if you disagree, give me a call or send us a chat. Love to hear what you guys think about it. But I wanted to follow about that. Meanwhile, things are happening in space. Now this Black Knight satellite, people have been talking about for 120 years. Some people think it's been up there for thousands, tens of thousands of years. It started back with Nikola Tesla. And it seems to be cycling through the news a lot. I don't really know why it's in the news again today. You'll see multiple articles about it. The ones I've gone through don't really tell me why it's in the news. But again, it's kind of like yesterday. We were talking about the gunman, and the story. Why is this story interesting? And so this story of why it's even in the news again is interesting to me. And just in general, the Black Knight satellite, which you may or may not know about, is quite interesting. So let's pull up this article from space.com. And this is one of the newer ones. This one is actually from earlier this month. There are a few from today, actually, but I thought this one was the most condescending to people who might believe in the Black Knight satellite being something more mysterious than just space junk. So let's see what they say. The Black Knight satellite, 120-year-old conspiracy theory. Who doesn't love a 120-year-old conspiracy theory? Now, it says, according to conspiracy theorists, the Black Knight satellite is an alien spacecraft orbiting Earth. Here's what's really going on. And I just want to say, for everyone out there, you're not a conspiracy theorist. You're a historian. Don't let these people tell you otherwise.
Nice.
And also, before we go any further, you see this image? You pull it back up. Sorry, Brandon. See this image they're showing us right here on space.com? For those listening, we're looking at this image. Looks like it's from space of the Black Knight satellite, this like amorphous silvery thing floating above alleged Earth, alleged globe Earth. Now look at that, right? And beneath it is this nice little caption. And this is an artist's impression of the purported Black Knight satellite, the focus of a long-lived conspiracy theory. Now, what's interesting to me about that is why did they choose to have an artist's impression when there are allegedly real photos that were leaked in 1998 from NASA of the Black Knight satellite, which we can get into a little bit later to show you those when they came out, where they are on the Wikipedia page. But what's interesting to me is this artist's impression happens to align with NASA's official theory that this is just a thermal blanket. Now, who knows? I don't know. But let's look at this article. And I will say, although I think there is a bit of a condescending tone to this article, which I quite enjoy, the other articles that I read pretty much say the same thing. This one has a little more detail. So let's go. The Black Knight satellite conspiracy theory claims that a mysterious artificial object is orbiting Earth in near polar orbit, possibly of alien origin, and has been doing so for more than 13,000 years. Now, I don't believe in 13,000 years, but let's continue. While scientists and space agencies have debunked the claim many times, the Black Knight satellite myth persists in online forums and tabloid articles, and right here on Inverted World Live, fueled by a jumble of unrelated space phenomena, misidentified objects, and speculative science fiction. And like Brandon says, science fiction is just yesterday's, myth that becomes tomorrow's truth. I forget. I'm paraphrasing. He has a much better quote of it.
That's pretty good. Science fiction precursor to science fact.
And that is fact. Guys, go read Bradbury. Go read these old Asimov. They were writing things 50 years ago, 60 years ago that these people are building today. At least that we know of. They were probably building it back then, to be honest. Let's unravel the myth, space.com says. Space.com clearly having a bias with this story, where it came from and why the Black Knight satellite continues to fascinate. In 1998, the crew of Space Shuttle mission STS-88 took a series of photographs showing a dark, twisted object orbiting Earth. UFO enthusiasts quickly claimed the object was the fabled Black Knight satellite. However, NASA and the astronauts involved offered a more down-to-earth explanation. According to astronaut Jerry Ross, the object was a thermal blanket lost during a spacewalk to install insulation on the International Space Station module. Jerry, one of the thermal covers got away from you, STS-88 Commander Robert Cabana told Ross during the spacewalk, and it soon became apparent that the cover was lost for good. The object was later cataloged by NASA, catalog number 025570, and burned up in Earth's atmosphere a few days later. Much of this information has been placed on the record. Oh, so then it must be. Former NASA engineer James Oberg, who personally knows Ross and the person who took the photos, cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev, cosmonaut, has demonstrated that these supposed images of the Black Knight actually depict a very mundane object. Now they are showing us one of these real images that allegedly came out in the 1998. So why do some people believe the Black Knight is an ancient alien spacecraft? The answer lies in a century-long mix of stories sketching back to the early days of radio experiments. So the Black Knight satellite is a lost thermal blanket from a 1998 space mission. Now here we go to Nikola Tesla. He's been popping up a lot in these stories. Tesla detected unusual radio signals, but scientists believe they were natural or from Earth-based sources, not from a satellite. The Black Knight satellite myth is a patchwork of different events spanning more than a century. Believers often point to Tesla's 1899 experiments in Colorado Springs, where he reportedly detected repeating radio signals, and he believed might have been from extraterrestrial sources. Now, he did believe that. And so Tesla has come up so much in recent Inverted World episodes. You might remember the bogosphere. They're telling us that the other tower that Tesla built, the Wardenclyffe Tower out in Long Island, is like inside that. An image of it is inside of the sphere. If you look at it, it's on its side. We pulled up the images last week. Interesting. Plus, we are back at it with this war against Trump and Elon. Two guys oddly connected to Tesla, obviously with Elon, the brand name Tesla, and with Trump's uncle taking all of Tesla's stuff after he died. Tesla is at the center of a lot of this stuff, and he's at the beginning of this Black Knight satellite. In 1927, amateur radio operator Jorgen Hals in Norway observed long-delayed radio echoes signals that returned seconds after transmission. This phenomenon, which remains not fully explained, added to the growing legend of strange signals from space. Then, in 1954, newspapers published claims by retired U.S. Air Force Major Donald Kehoe that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 artificial satellites orbiting Earth at a time when no nation had yet launched one. These claims have never been substantiated. So This might also remind you now at this point, something I talk about a lot, a New York Times article from about a decade ago, where they talk about a vehicle not of this Earth, just chilling in orbit in outer space. It seems to be something that keeps repeating itself. And it just goes away and somehow slips back into the collective conscious with these articles, slowly massaging the alien narrative back into reality. Further fuel was added in 1960 when Time magazine reported that the U.S. Navy detected a dark object thought to be a Soviet spy satellite in orbit. It was later identified as a piece of the Discoverer 8 satellite, part of the Corona program. Corona. Weird word to see these days in a post-COVID world. America's first spy satellite project that we know of. The modern surge in interest in the Black Knight satellite came with the release of the images from NASA's STS-88 mission in 1998. The images show a strange, black, wing-like object silhouetted against Earth's blue background. They quickly circulated online and became evidence for the Black Knight and UFO communities. So I don't have to go too deep into this, as I want to talk about some other things. But we do have this weird story of the astronaut named Gordon Cooper in the 60s allegedly seeing this as well. Now, he believed in UFOs. He is on record about believing in UFOs. He testified, I think, before the UN about UFOs. He's spoken extensively about UFOs. But the thing about this, about him seeing allegedly the Black Knight satellite, has been scrubbed. NASA wrote it off, and I don't know if he actually denied it, but he just stopped, or maybe just stopped talking about it, which gets a lot of people thinking, like, why? You know, did NASA make him stop? Is there something bigger there? I don't know. But real quick, Brandon, let's go to that Gordon Cooper video. I don't think he talks about it so much because he stopped talking about it, but he says a lot of interesting things in this video. You know, I believe this guy. I believe he's seen things. You know, whether or not what he saw is what he thinks he saw. It could have been something else, not extraterrestrial. I believe he thinks these are all extraterrestrial things. But this is an astronaut. He claims to have seen a lot of things. He was a pilot before an astronaut. So let's tune in to Gordon Cooper real quick.
Flying the same kind of formation that we fly in our fighters.
Where were you flying?
We were flying in Germany, and we were flying F-86s. And they would come over and do the same maneuvers that we make, except every once in a while one of them would go zip. And you just can't do that in a fighter, a conventional fighter.
Was this on radar or was this visual?
No, it was on visual. You could see them from what started was the weatherman was tracking a weather balloon, and he saw these objects with his binoculars. And so that started people getting out and looking at them, and then we decided to put some airplanes up and see what they were. But we couldn't get to them. They were higher and faster. So we couldn't tell whether they were large and a long ways away or whether they were smaller and closer in. It was difficult to gauge exactly what their size was.
So pause it real quick, because I do want to hear just a few more from Gordon, but there is something about him that I believe this guy has seen things, you know, and he has written extensively about it. He talked a lot about it before he passed away. It's like some of these pilots, I hear them talk, and I feel like a lot of them are so controlled. Some of these whistleblowers, a lot of these modern ones, I really do not trust. I think they're plants put out here to maybe discredit the narrative, or just throw people off the scent of other things. You know, thinking about the Pentagon manufacturing UFO extraterrestrial stories to throw people off the scent of, like, Lockheed Martin joyrides of some weird space stuff they've been making. But there's something interesting about Gordon Cooper's story. And yeah, let's listen to a few more minutes from him.
They were definitely in formation.
What year was this?
In 51, about 1951.
Do you think the Russians had that kind of technology back then?
No.
So how close would you say you might have gotten to them? I mean, you definitely determined that there were objects
I
that were
don't
under
know.
intelligent control, or was it?
Well, yeah, they weren't just random. They were flying fighter formations, very definitely under positive control. They're just typical saucer shape, double lenticular shape, metallic looking. I think they were definitely piloted vehicles, each one with the pilot in it, and very definitely in communication with one another, because they would have flights of more than 4. They'd have flights of maybe 12 or 16, all across, and when they make a turn, they'd cross the flights in under, and they had to be in communication to be coordinated. Yeah, every once in a while one would zip off to the side, just do a lateral maneuver out to the side. Much as if you've ever seen the lights, the UFOs that they filmed over Clear Lake, California.
I did.
Seen those filmed?
I have.
How they'll sit there in formation and all of a sudden one will go. I think they were extraterrestrial pilots flying, no doubt about it.
We can stop here. I do recommend people looking into stuff Cooper talked about. He just looks like someone, he sounds like someone who has seen things. Who knows what those things are, but he looks like he's someone who had seen things. I just want to address one thing. I'm trying to look at the chat, and who is this? MF Damien said something I think is interesting. I want to address really quick. He said, think Tesla would be mad his namesake is plastered onto fully government controllable Big Brother vehicles? Absolutely. It's almost like Edison's ghost is back at it and attacking Tesla. It's like, for those who don't know, like with Nikola Tesla, he was up against Edison, someone he used to work for, and Edison just tried to destroy him. And maybe he did, in the end, Edison won, I suppose. But I've been thinking about that a lot lately, so I appreciate that comment. To see Nikola Tesla's namesake kind of bastardized now and being used by a lot of these bigger corporations who are not, I think, as innovative as someone like Tesla, but pretending to be. That's just my opinion. But I want to thank everyone for joining us. Real quick before we continue, everyone who's been here from IRL, appreciate you guys tuning in and joining us. We've been talking about the Black Knight satellite. It's been in the news for 120 years. It's not a new thing, but it's back in the news today. And earlier this month, it was in the news. Today, it's back in the news. There's no real reason why. It's just there, and I feel like it's there to just inject more of this extraterrestrial narrative into our brains, because it seems to be ramping up. The bogus fear, all these UFO videos. There's been an uptick in a lot of this stuff. Social media for sure accelerates that, and makes people want to post more. NASA's been actively asking people to post more, to watch the skies more, so people are paying more attention. But I just find it interesting that this unknown, quote unquote satellite or space junk, we don't know, is up there. And some people think it's observing us. So we've been talking about that. We were just listening to Gordon Cooper talk about his experiences with UFOs. And he's someone who allegedly saw the Black Knight satellite when he was in space. Alleged space, I'll say. But all of that then should lead us to, and I don't know why I chose this article considering I cannot pronounce anything, but let's talk about Oumuamua. And Oumuamua is also in the news this month. And it's like the new, not really the new Black Knight satellite, because they don't claim that it just orbits us. But this article from WIO News from earlier last month, this is the headline, was Oumuamua an alien spaceship? So this is from a Harvard scientist, hints it was no ordinary rock. So the Black Knight satellite, that's out. It's just space junk. But Oumuamua, now this might be an alien spacecraft. When Oumuamua, the first known interstellar object to visit our solar system, zipped past Earth in 2017, it left scientists with more questions than answers. Here's why a few scientists, including Harvard's Avi Loeb, dared to suggest it might have been alien in origin. Oumuamua's speed and trajectory revealed that it wasn't orbiting the sun, it was just passing through. It entered from interstellar space and then shot back out, never to return. This was the first time humanity observed such a visitor, making it instantly intriguing. The object's brightness varied dramatically, suggesting it had an unusual, elongated shape, possibly like a cigar or a pancake. Those are two different things, right?
Yes. Insane.
Those are two very different things. It was also tumbling chaotically, not spinning like most asteroids. The odd geometry added to the mystery as no known natural object had shown this combo. As Oumuamua passed near the sun, it unexpectedly accelerated, as if something was pushing it. Normally, comets do this when ice turns into gas and jets out, but Oumuamua, I'm going to say Oumuamua like 30 more times, showed no visible outgassing, tail, or dust cloud. This behavior couldn't be fully explained by standard physics. Now, Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb proposed that Oumuamua might have been a light sail, a thin, flat object pushed by solar radiation, possibly sent by an alien civilization as a probe. He acknowledged the theory was bold, but argued that if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, maybe it's extraterrestrial. What do you guys think? The way Oumuamua curved through the solar system didn't follow a typical gravitational arc. With no clear signs of gas emission or traditional cometary tail, the deviation in its path remained unexplained by natural models. Despite efforts, no radio signals or signs of technology were detected from Oumuamua, which is like harkening back to how this all started with Tesla thinking he heard radio signals from the Black Knight satellite. However, it was already too far and too fast for close inspection by the time attention focused on it. The lack of data leaves the mystery wide open. In conclusion, most scientists still lean toward a natural explanation, perhaps a strange kind of icy rock or fragment from a planet. But because Oumuamua doesn't neatly fit into any known category, it remains one of the most intriguing unsolved puzzles in astronomy. And for some, the small possibility of it being alien is worth keeping on the table. So, we got Oumuamua, we got the Black Knight satellite, a lot of things going up there that we just don't explain or can't explain. A lot of this made me think about the moon. I got a lot of theories on the moon. The moon's a weird place. I really don't think the moon is what they're telling us it is. There's some people who think it's hollow. There's some people who think it's just plasma. I don't know. What I do know is there are people paying lots of money right now to have their ashes buried on the moon, shot into the moon. You can look that up. Gene Roddenberry is one of them. He's paid lots of money to have his ashes shot up there. There's a ship out there that's floating around with JFK's DNA in it. We're sending a lot of weird stuff to the moon. When I interviewed Alex Jones for a story I wrote about him, his theory on the moon has stuck with me. He believes in the moon, and he thinks we did land on the moon. But he thinks that the footage that everyone saw was not actual footage of the moon landing because, in his words, there were too many bodies on the moon to film any real moon landing because of a lot of failed attempts. I don't know what's going on there, but also China's working on the dark side of the moon. We don't know what's going on with them either. A lot of stuff going on in space that we just don't know. But before we pivot to callers, and again, for those who are just now joining us, our phone lines are open. We'll be taking calls till about midnight. If you've had any encounter with something strange, we want to hear from you. The link to call in is pinned in the chat below on Rumble and YouTube. But to just further this discussion on the narrative of extraterrestrial UFO stuff ramping up, this is a recent article I meant to pull up last week, but it is from The Sun, and this is the British, what they're up to these days, those old British. They've got UFO hearings planned. Who doesn't? British UFO hearings planned with MP set to hear from alien whistleblowers. Let's just get into it. Britain is set to hold public hearings at which military personnel can disclose their close encounters with UFOs. The U.S.-style hearings will allow RAF, Army and Navy whistleblowers to tell all about experiences they have been previously banned from revealing under military non-disclosure rules and for fear of ridicule, which is a lot of stuff these people talk about in our hearings. We've heard these people say that they have been attacked, according to them, who knows, by people within the government for speaking out. They also say some of them have been attacked by UFOs. We don't know. The UK's new UFO disclosure group has secured a meeting with a minister from the House of Lords to set up a forum where alien whistleblowers can come forward with their evidence. The group was set up by documentary filmmaker Mark Christopher Lee to push for transparency on reported sightings of UFOs, aka unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. As Daily Star revealed previously, a letter from the body calling for full disclosure in the UK was sent to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, now an associate of the Brit leader. The Brit leader has arranged for a minister from the House of Lords to meet with Mark to put the first steps in place to create a select committee to hear evidence from UFO experiencers. Now we know, like it says, similar hearings before the U.S. Congress have led to the release of previously classified documents revealing reported close encounters between military personnel and mystery craft. Mark said it is essential whistleblowers can come forward without fear or ridicule. And I agree. Whistleblowers for anything shouldn't be afraid. You know, we've had a lot of whistleblowers in this country who have been majorly attacked, not just for UFO stuff, but for just reporting on, you know, giving us transparency within the government. I can think of a few within the FBI that have been totally destroyed by the FBI for just calling out unethical practices. And that should be, you know, whistleblowers should be protected at all costs. Speaking at a screening of his latest documentary, The Rendlesham UFO, the British Roswell, at the Raindance Film Festival, he said one of Sir Keir Starmer's friends and associates is arranging a meeting with someone from the House of Lords, one of the ministers. So that's a start. So there you have it, people. The British are doing their thing. I'm looking forward to seeing what they say in those hearings. They said they're going to be public, so we'll see. It also reminds me that, you know, just a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, one of the people high up in the Israeli military claimed that aliens were real. I think they also claimed that Trump knew about it, which then connects to that viral stuff that was going on this weekend about Trump allegedly being debriefed on Nordic aliens. That, who knows? But there's a lot of stuff swirling, and it's not just below the surface stuff on, like, you know, obscure websites. It is hearings across in different countries. It is the president talking about it. It is major whistleblowers coming out, whether you trust them or not. This narrative is happening. It is the bogus sphere falling out of the sky, and our congressman going to Mexico to talk about it and holding alien hands at the press conference. A lot of stuff is happening. It is very, very, very inverted out there. But let's get to some callers. I don't think I've missed anything. I think that is it for now. But if we got some callers lined up,
Yep.
let's do it.
So I'm going to kick us off tonight. We're going to get back to some people that we missed last night. We are going to start with Gian, who we have not talked to since last week, I do not believe.
All right. No, it's been a little while.
Gian, you're live.
Hello?
What's up?
You're here.
Hey guys,
What's up, man? How are
What's
you?
up?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
Good, good, good.
Chilling.
What's new?
I mean, I'm always thinking about new things. I'm a deep thinker, so you know, I'm ready to talk about pretty much anything. But if there's anything I've said that you guys have questions on, I'll elaborate on that first, or I don't know. I'm
Well, let's just
got a lot
say
to talk about.
we've talked before about morality, right? Right and
Yep.
wrong, God and no God, good and evil. And we talked about, I believe it was your experience with the different lives,
Psilocybin.
right? Was it psilocybin
I think it was.
or was it just weed?
I can't remember.
Oh, it was weed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I was high as shit.
Say.
I don't
Right.
mind acknowledging that.
And I referenced your story just the other day, maybe yesterday, about the sphere that you were returning to, I think, right?
Right.
We've had a few people talk about spheres they've encountered and sort of similar experiences, except not accelerated by the use of drugs, if you consider weed a drug. But let's talk about new things on your mind. What is going on?
So, it's new things, but it's old things as well. Because as like I'm a deep thinker. I think about things a lot, and as I think about things, I'll kind of reconcile them or come to terms with them, and then I'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about my ideas with other people, I'm like, oh yeah, like there are these things that I've already come to peace with, but you know, maybe other people aren't there yet. So it's you know, I think life is very complex. But one thing you've asked me about, Shane, is determinism. So if you're interested, I can tell you kind of my thoughts on determinism.
Yeah, yeah. For those who don't know, maybe you could just give us a brief on what that is, and then you can get into your thoughts.
Sure. And I'll let you guys recap your thoughts. So determinism kind of talks about the idea that we are created and we're on a path. And some people think you can make decisions, which kind of shifts that path, where other people think we're all designed and everything is kind of laid out in front of you in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, the extremists of determinism believe that you're in a path that you can't deviate from. Other people think it's a little more loose, but a lot of the people who believe in it believe you are it's kind of etched in stone. There's no free will. And we got into that idea of determinism with our first talk because we're talking about right and wrong. And there are and this is not everyone who believes in determinism, but there are those people who are extremists. And I would put Sam Harris as one of those people. I've heard him talk about this before, that have a different idea of punishment then for things that I would say are wrong or evil. Because in his mind, and people who think like him about determinism, they think, how can you punish someone for something that they have no control over? Which I totally disagree with. But let us know what you're thinking about all that now.
Yeah. Brandon, any thoughts before I jump in?
I mean, my biggest thing, what you described is one of my biggest fears, actually, Shane. My whole thing is I have to feel like I've got some kind of control and some kind of free will when it comes to my life and my decision making. I don't like the idea that a path has been laid for me and that I have absolutely no choice but to walk it to whatever end has been set by something else.
Right.
It drives me absolutely insane, and that's
I know.
part of the not religious thing, obviously, but it's hard for me to come to terms with the fact that you are not in control of your own life in any form or facet. I can't get on board with it.
Right. And I should say most of the people who believe in determinism do not believe in God. And then we were talking briefly the other day about how people believe in God, such as myself, do believe in free will, and people have different ideas on free will. In my interpretation is like, God is omniscient. He sees every possible path. So there's kind of like degrees of determinism with like almost an illusion of free will. Like you can make these choices and go different paths, but in my mind, God sees all those, like, infinite number of paths. That's getting into the intricacies of it. But John, where are you with all this now?
So, like I said, I think a lot about things, and I was raised in a Baptist Christian belief. So I, as a child growing up, I fully believed in Baptist Christian beliefs and what I learned as in the Bible. So like when I was taught growing up that faith comes before belief, I'm like, all right, cool, I believe. Like you don't have to convince me. I believe this since I was born. So like let's bring on the faith. And so I've really struggled with that idea. And so I believe the world is determined. Like your life has been determined by your circumstances. I find a lot of just enjoyment looking into social science and seeing how groups of people make decisions. And you can look at an individual's decisions and how they kind of determine what's best for them. And then you look at a group and they will make decisions. The group will make decisions based on the options presented to them. So when you look at all of the options possible and then you narrow it to the options available to a group, I think that creates the realm of what you can determine. And that's kind of the like front door to how I view determinism.
Okay. Yeah. I see that. I just feel like people can break that mold. If we're looking at politics, you can just to kind of look at something we can all picture. The left does seem like a monolith, and they all sort of move together. whereas the right doesn't. I mean, give or take, you know, it's hard to say. A lot of them are all spineless together, and some are not. But you know, then you look at people who do grow up in places where they're surrounded by bad stuff. I think I even said this the first time around. And if we're talking politics, the first person that comes to mind who breaks a mold, we'll say, will be someone like Thomas Sowell, who was in Harlem growing up a communist, and then, you know, found a way to the library and, you know, got into economics and all this stuff and realized, you know, he could break out of the mold that he saw himself stuck in. And there's, you know, there's countless people like that who are able to escape that. And like, but of course, surroundings do enslave people because they don't try, they don't see anything. Maybe it's nihilism and meaninglessness, shackling them to their surroundings. And they see, this is the pattern. You know, you see generational nihilism and generational decay, something like Faulkner used to write about about the post-Civil War South, where, you know, he was kind of like showing how God was decaying amongst these people in the way that Nietzsche would say God is dead. Like, you know, the idea of God has left humans.
During the Enlightenment period, right?
Right. I don't know when he wrote that. That might have been after, you know, that, but that might have led to it. And this idea of like, you know, Nietzsche was saying that's a bad thing. You know, people have since kind of remixed it into being like, he said God is dead. But it's like, no. Like, society has removed God, and this might be bad. But
He was kind of describing a symptom.
yes. And, you know, that's kind of what Faulkner was showing. And again, that's very location surroundings based, because he was showing like, look what happened to all these people after the Civil War, totally destroyed, decrepit, reconstruction didn't work. And so I'm just saying that to say, like, to your point, a lot of those people were shackled to those surroundings and didn't get out. But there are people who are able to escape that, clearly, from all around the world throughout history, which is where I think the free will comes in, to be able to open up your eyes and be like, I can get out of this. You know, there is a way out. There's a path I can see. You know, and then you could say, well, maybe they were determined to make that path. You can go back and forth with this, but yeah, I see your point. I see people from where I grew up who are stuck in that pattern where their parents did the same thing. You know, something I think about raising kids, about generational stuff that you kind of want to remove before it gets to your kids. So it's, you know, and that is a form of determinism, because if I'm already thinking about that, I'm thinking about how I don't want this to pass to my kids. Kind of like, not ancestral DNA, but sort of like that. Something that, you know, has been learned through generations that I need to break, you know, whatever it is. We all have our flaws, right? So yeah, I can see that, but I still see free will. So have you changed your idea of free will at all? Like, are you seeing anything free will, or is it just, are you mostly seeing determinism now, and now that you've looked into it?
Damn, I was like tracking with you until you asked me a question, and then I got all confused.
Nice. Welcome to Inverted World Live.
So,
well, we can just say, how has your perception of this changed since looking at determinism,
if at all?
if at all?
well, the thing is like, I've been trying to figure out how I fit into life, right? I was born, I was taught I'm part of this greater design. So, like, I'm trying to look at what is my determined path, and if I have a determined path, do I have any influence on that? So, relating back to kind of politics and the way that humans interact, this is what I lost my train of thought. When I was how old do you think I am?
Oh man. So I'm not looking at anything, people. You're just a disembodied voice.
Right.
And while I'm thinking about that, I'm just going to shout out everyone who's joining us now from IRL. We appreciate you joining us. We've been talking about the Black Knight satellite, Oumuamua, Tesla, UFO hearings. And now we're talking about free will, determinism, right and wrong, our path in life with our caller, Gian, who just asked me how old I think he is. And this is just based off a disembodied voice. I don't know. 37.
All right. I think that's fair. I have a very deep voice,
You're
and
you're
I talk
22.
more intellectually than people my age. I'm 26 years old.
Okay. Nice.
So I was born in 99.
Okay.
And this was at the event horizon of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You
I
were
think
3 for
things
9/11.
have been the same since before the internet. However, with the internet, we're able to see and sense and get a perspective on things that we would never be able to conceptualize as an individual in a individual society. We're able to break borders and boundaries and look across the wall, if you will, into other societies. And since the spread of the internet, I think nothing has changed. It has only perpetuated and accelerated. And so what we see within politics is not a change, it's only an acceleration. And so I think if you kind of slow that down and you look closer, you'll see these microcosms of revolts and revolutions within small areas because of the information these people are gaining.
Yeah. You know, in a way, human nature is determined towards darkness. You know, as someone who's religious, I believe in the fall of man, but I don't think it takes religion to realize that humanity is fairly dark. But then I believe we have free will to be good, you know? And no matter how modern we might appear, we are as barbaric as we've always been. So, you know, like we're still doing crazy stuff. It's just people in suits now and different cars and glass buildings that reach into the sky. So there is a form of determinism in that regard, but I still believe there's this hope of free will throughout it to break that mold, because human nature in itself is kind of a surrounding that we're all anchored to. But I think what was I was writing down something while you were talking. You're talking about your influence, and you know it would be a tough thing for you to struggle with now, because as a determinist, if you are, I don't know if you consider yourself one, I don't believe determinists feel that they would have any influence, because they are totally under the influence of determinism. So you're kind of like stuck. You are a slave to this path that you've been put on. I don't believe that. I cannot believe that. I think we are in control to a degree. Obviously, we all have our things from our life, our history, our generational stuff from all of our ancestors that we've learned about in their stories, things that inform us. But I do believe we have influence, and 100%, I really do believe like you have influence over your life and the people you can control around you, or not control around you, but influence around you, with whatever, making them think about things like this right here. You're influencing people, whether they agree with you or not, or me or not, or Brandon. We are influencing them by having this conversation in their heads now about free will versus determinism, right versus wrong, and all that stuff, which is, I think, pretty good. And you were raised Baptist, and would you say you're atheist now, agnostic?
I've tried to find a way to define my beliefs, and it's something of a mix of everything and kind of not accepting most things. So I'm just kind of going with what makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that could change, because I was militantly atheist for a long time. I never thought that would change. I thought that was my determined path. Even though it was before I knew anything about determinism, I was stuck in like, there is nothing else. But then I had this, whatever happened to me, and I can't imagine not being like this now. So I'm not saying that will happen to you. It doesn't happen to everybody, but I hope it does. But you never know. And perhaps where you're at now, looking at your life and spiritually and all that stuff around you, might inform however you morph, however you morph spiritually or not into the future. It's like thinking about people on Rumspringa who are Amish, right? They leave to kind of get a taste of the real world, and most of them come back, and that experience of freedom, if you will, from what I know, if there's any Amish listening, I'm sorry, I'm getting this wrong. I know there's not. I know there's not. Maybe unless they're on Rumspringa, informs their faith and their attitude towards surrounding. I believe there is a high rate of them returning from Rumspringa. I don't even know how crazy they all go, because there's stories like, oh, they went out and partied. I don't think it gets that crazy. Maybe some of them, but you never know. You know, how you are now could inform the person you become tomorrow. It will, no matter what, no matter what path you take, which again brings me back to free will. Even though there's infinite paths, and in my mind, my omniscient God can see all those paths. I still have the ability to go down whichever one I feel like taking. But that's just me.
So I have a couple different directions I could respond. One is more philosophical, one is kind of spiritual, and then one is more like experience and physics based. And I try to combine all those things. Did you guys listen to the Timcast IRL? I think it was from Friday. They had a NASA scientist and then this other, I don't know if he was a lawyer or something.
I didn't
They were
listen
talking
to it,
about all these different physics and just kind of psychological.
I know Ashton, he was on, he's been on the show. I didn't hear that episode, but I'm pretty aware of what he talks about for sure.
Yeah, so he was talking about a lot of things that were theoretical, and they kind of try to combine quantum physics and general relativity, which is a fascinating topic to think about. And then when you also introduce physics, what we experience in our day-to-day world, it makes it even more fascinating. So I really, really enjoyed listening to that, and to try to like view a world the way I do. You have to be willing to accept that you're wrong constantly, and I am. If I find out new information, I'm like, hell yeah, I was wrong. Like, what else can I learn? And I think that's the mentality that drives my force. So,
well, it's
like,
good. I mean,
for what you were saying, like there's different paths I could start on, but they all come back to the same point.
I mean, I think that's good. You don't trust, like the phrase trust the science makes people sound like they're locked in that path of whatever the science says must be, which is completely antithetical to what science should be, where you're constantly experimenting, learning new ways to look at the same thing. That's how it should be. So, you know, that's a good thing, I think. But yeah, man, I always appreciate these conversations. Did you have any other thoughts before we go to another caller?
No. My main goal is to I want people to think, because I enjoy connecting with other people. I can think as much as I want in my head, but at a point it gets kind of redundant and I sound crazy even to myself. So I want to connect with other people to better understand myself.
Well, that's great, man. Same here, dude. I appreciate it. We appreciate the phone calls, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Have a good night.
Bye.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks to Gian for calling in. Thanks again for everyone who's joining us now. Again, for those who just joined us a little bit ago, phone lines are open. We'll be here till midnight taking phone calls. The link to call in is pinned in the chat below on both Rumble and YouTube. It's audio only. Give it a click if you got a story you want to share with us, a strange encounter, a thought on anything we've been talking about, ancient civilizations, mysterious satellites in the sky, Oumuamua, is there aliens in the moon? Which reminds me, I did know someone this wealthy lady in New York City, with like a very successful lady. She had this crazy doctor who saw a lot of pilots, and this is about 10 years ago, maybe less. He told her that a lot of the pilots were starting to have weird like radiation issues, and because he believed the Earth was actually tilting, which is sort of like that whole polar shift stuff a bit. But he swore up and down that something was happening where radiation was getting into the pilots more than ever, and he was treating them more than ever for this stuff. But he also believed that the moon was a headquarters for like some alien mothership, which is kind of what they were saying with Oumuamua, and possibly with the Black Knight satellite. We don't know what that is. Maybe the space junk, but these theories have been out there. Who knows? I certainly do not. But if you got a theory on that, give us a call. Shall we get to another caller?
Yeah. big thanks to anybody who's hanging out from Break the Chains Media.
Oh,
We
heck
got
yeah.
rated from them too, so thank you guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
appreciate
Those
you
guys
hanging out.
rule.
And a couple of things out of the way real quick. Don't forget Culture War Live, Comedy Loft, DC, June 26th, July 2nd, and July 9th. Tickets are $30 online, GA. You can get them at dccomedyloft.com. Make sure you come out, say what's up. I'll be hanging out all 3 shows. Come holla at your boy. And do not forget, like, subscribe, follow, share, rant about things in chat. We love to see it, and we appreciate you guys hanging out.
Oh, and Brandon, what happens on Tuesdays?
Tuesdays is where they burn the monkeys.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And Mondays we burn the midnight oil.
That's right.
Yeah,
Shout out to episode 51.
that is nuts.
Was that Tiny that said that? Must have been, right?
I think so. Yeah, because he was telling us about the
Firefighters yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's Tiny. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm pretty sure Tiny, who called in last night. Was that even last night?
Yeah.
I'm in missing time world.
Yeah, it was
That must
last
have been
night
him.
because we
Yeah.
didn't have shows two
Yeah.
nights before that.
Yeah, true.
Weekend.
Are you sure? Yeah, you're
Pretty
right.
sure.
You're right. But yeah, he was the one who called. I think one of our first callers on that episode for our new schedule.
He
telling
might
us
have
about Fort
actually
Detroit.
been our first caller.
He might have
51,
been.
if
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not-
crazy.
That's nuts. It feels like it was so long ago already. It was
Man.
about a month ago.
Great first caller. Yeah, we talked to him last night because we were talking about the Idaho gunman and first responders under attack. And as a first responder, as a firefighter, he gave us some context to all that. So much appreciated about all that. And yes, the monkeys are burned on Tuesdays at Fort Detrick.
All right, let's get back to our list here. So I want to bring on Jerry next
Oh yeah,
because we did not get to Jerry yesterday.
let's do it.
Jerry, what's up?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you. I have 3 patches of stories.
Well, let's. You want to?
Yeah, I think you gave us like 3 options last night,
Yeah.
and then we lost you. Can you just
Yeah, well,
remind us?
I'm actually calling from Scotland.
Sweet.
So there's 3 types of stories. There's personal, there's historical hauntings. Yeah.
Okay. Which one is the one that changed you the most? Learning or experiencing?
Well, lots of weird things happen to me, and gets to the point where I'm lying in my bed and I'm just saying, please, just let this stop. I don't like this anymore. Just let it stop.
Mm. Well, let's hear about it.
My earliest memory, I was about 18 months old, and I was in a crib, and I was trying to climb out. And then I remember looking up and I saw a silhouette of a man. It was just a black shadow with a hat on at my window.
Mm. And you remember that at 18 months old?
Yeah, it must have been about that. Because I
That's
was in a
wild.
crib, I was able to stand up, and I was trying to climb out, and I saw him, and I was putting my arms out to him to get him to help me climb out.
Oh, that's creepy. What kind of hat did he have on?
It was like, the only way I could describe it was like the type of hat that Humphrey Bogart wore.
Okay. Sort of like a fedora.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, geographically, I'm in quite a haunted city. And when I was at college, I was training to be a computer programmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the same college as the guys who invented GTA.
GTA?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was playing that today.
Nice.
And I was in college, and one of the guys in class went, well, I was shouting on you, and you never answered. I was like, that's weird, I never seen you. And then the very next day, I went into the elevator to be met by my doppelganger. And I
Oh.
had to ride in a lift with my doppelganger. That was so awkward.
So, for those who don't know, a doppelganger is like almost like a copy, someone who looks a lot like you. Did you talk to your doppelganger?
No, I was too frightened.
Oh, that was going to be my question too. I'm like, what did you ask them?
Right. Was it how similar were they to you?
Pardon, could you repeat that, please?
How similar did they look to you?
She was slightly heavier built than me, because I'm 5'3" and about 120 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did she look at you like she was seeing her
Yeah,
doppelganger?
she looked at me and she backed at the corner of the elevator.
You two were both worried about each other.
Yeah, it was the most awkward thing. And I was the person who did the super chat regarding that weird thing that happened in the bingo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we read that off last night.
What was that?
Yeah,
That was that the numbers were already marked off on the card, but they hadn't called them yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's odd. Let's go back to the hat guy real quick. So you have this clear memory as an 18-month-old of a shadow man with a hat. So that's like people who would say that's like a hat man. The hat's a little different in your description, but let's say it is a type of hat man. People tend to associate him appearing with times of trauma or anything weird going on. Do you know of anything weird happening within your family around that time?
well, my mother and father were renting a flat, and it was in one of the oldest buildings in the city. And unfortunately, the guy who owned the flat, the whole block actually, wasn't upkeeping the maintenance. And I remember I had my little doll in a little carriage, and I was trying to find her. And I went into my mum and dad's bedroom, couldn't find them, and as the minute I crossed the threshold to go out the bedroom, the whole roof collapsed.
Mm.
And I always remember my mother's dressing table because it's smashed like glass. And then I got sent off to stay with my gran because obviously it was dangerous for us to live there, whilst my mother and father were trying to find another house.
Wow. Did anybody get hurt or anything? Any terrible
No,
things?
no, I mean, I was really lucky. I mean, because
Seriously.
it was pretty close. The other weird thing that I suffered from, and I'd never experienced it before. I went to bed, and I don't know if it was because I was overstressed or whatever, but you know how you get sleep paralysis?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was a shift worker working for adults with learning disabilities, multiple and complex needs, with social work. And when you're a shift worker, you just get so tired. And so I went to bed, and I, I went to bed, and all of a sudden I couldn't move. My eyes were closed, and my eyes were flickering because I was getting hundreds and hundreds of random faces coming up to my face. It was like do 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 do, and I couldn't move, and all these faces were coming up to my face.
Hmm.
And the scary thing was, not all of the faces were human.
What did they look like?
Well, it was old people, young people, children. It was like demons. It was like twisted faces as well. And this went on for about a week.
Every night?
Yeah, every night for a week.
And so you had the sleep paralysis as these faces were coming to you? Were they something that
Yeah,
were
yeah.
in?
You
Was
know how
it?
when if someone comes up to your face, your eye, even although your eyes are closed, they flicker
Yeah.
because it was like they were just so close to my face.
Did it
Yeah,
feel? Did it seem like they were coming from the outside to you, or it was happening underneath your eyelids?
it was like they were coming from the outside and stopping right in front of my nose.
And would you say, what did you think? Were they apparitions?
I don't know, they were just floating heads.
Mm-hmm.
And where I worked, one of my managers, she was a member of a spiritualist church. And I thought if I mention it to her, because there's a lot of things that happen to me that's weird that I don't mention to anybody, because people will go, oh, away you go. So I thought I'd speak to her, and she says, that's the spirits trying to contact you. If that happens again, tell them to go and find me, and this is my address, memorize it. And the minute it happened again, I did that, and it never happened again. I said, go and see Val at this address.
That's
It
wild.
never happened again.
Well,
It
that's
could be
good.
psychological or something.
Interesting. So you said, in Scotland where you're at, there's some interesting, a lot of haunting stories. Can you think of any in the area that maybe haven't affected you, but like ghost stories that you might remember?
Well, when I was younger, I was into that spooky stuff. There was a guy, I think he built satellites, Arthur C. Clarke.
Mm-hmm.
And
The writer.
so I used to watch that on telly with my gran. And me and my friends would do urban exploring before it became popular. And there was a huge mill not far from us, and it was called the Coffin Mill. And it didn't make coffins, but if you were to look from an aerial shot, it was the shape of a coffin.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know it's nuts. And so we went there, we were urban exploring, and it had something like 200 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very base of this mill was just one clear, open floor plan. So we were in the bottom of it, and we were in the bottom, and all of a sudden we seen two red lights. Well, we all got spooked and ran, thinking, I bet you this is like a security guard or something, eh? See, when I turned to run, everything went really cold. And you know how you're hearing sounds when you go underwater, how distorted the sound is.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it sounded like when we were trying to run out there.
What do you think that
We were
was?
trying to get out of the factory. And when I turned round, I still thought it was a security guard, but my other friends were saying, no, that was two eyes. And they were coming straight towards us, and it was red.
Anyone in the area ever talk about it? See something similar?
Well, my mum, when she was a child, she used to play around there, and there was a connecting walkway from one of the buildings to another one. And she said she saw a woman walking past that walkway, which was impossible because parts of the walkway were missing.
Hmm.
And she says, I don't know why it was a woman. She says, because all it was a white pillar of mist gliding across this walkway.
That's creepy.
There's loads of stuff. Even if I'm really sorry, this is the first time I've come. Well, last night was the first time I tried to contact you, but obviously this is the first opportunity I've had to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of geographically in my area, if you look up the fairy pools or the fairy glen in Scotland, if you Google it, you'll be able to see the pictures. That's the weirdest looking place, and the amount of people that vanish there is unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah,
Like tourists or people from the area, both?
anybody.
Interesting. So it's like a Bermuda Triangle situation,
Yeah, it's
or like a
like
national forest parks.
if you Google the pictures, fairy pools Scotland or fairy glen Scotland. If you were to look at the fairy glen, you would say, "Wow, that looks like a golf course."
Have you been there? Like, do you go there, or you don't want to mess with that?
I haven't been there, but I've been in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, there's a haunted road in Scotland. It's a modern road, but it runs along the lines of an ancient road. And there's apparitions of people horses and carriages. There was people, apparitions of people pulling carts. But apparently it's like your Gettysburg. There was lots of bloodshed and battles there. And the road is, where am I?
We're looking at the
Yeah,
we're looking at the Fairy Glen right now, by the way.
It's another one of those spiral things that we were looking at last night too.
Yep.
That's kind of crazy.
yeah,
It's beautiful.
That's like a Stonehenge
yes,
almost.
So people go missing here, you say?
yeah.
Interesting. Well,
It's
we appreciate you calling in and sharing these stories. I want to look more into the Fairy Glen stuff. But give us a call back if you got more stories you want to share. We'd like to hear from you again.
far too much weird stuff happens to me. But you're welcome.
Thanks, Jerry. Have a good
Have a
night.
good night.
You too.
Were you able to see if the missing person stuff at that place?
I haven't gotten that deep yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
Um,
Haven't heard about that at all, but it looks interesting.
this is just like painting it as a tourist attraction, basically.
Who's taking these people? I had a bunch of missing person stories today until I saw the Black Knight satellite stuff. A lot of strange stuff going on. People going missing. I haven't delved too deep into the missing 411. I know about it, but I know there's some people who debunk it. They say they debunk it, but there's a lot of people who go missing. I also want to shout out someone from last night saying in Florida there's no Bigfoot, but there is the skunk ape. And that's their cryptid. And this is from just a few days ago, this article. I'm just going to read a bit of it because shout out to the skunk apes. Charlotte County's skunk ape hunt returns, seeking explorers of all ages. Charlotte County is bringing back Squatch Watch this summer, inviting explorers to join in on the fun. I am not sponsored by Squatch Watch at all. I just figured the people who watch the show should know about this if you happen to be in the area. Participants are encouraged to get creative in their hunt for the skunk ape, Florida's smelly Bigfoot. To take part, explorers can take photos in Charlotte County's environmental parks and preserves. To enter, submit a photo of a skunk ape sighting or show yourself enjoying the hunt. So not like a hunt, but it would be cool if it was a hunt. Like a real hunt, not just with a camera. Skunk ape.
Do we have any idea what that looks like?
You should look it up real quick. I don't know. It's not even in the photo. It looks like the photos in this article are just weirder looking versions of Bigfoot.
I was gonna say this is basically telling me it's Bigfoot.
But skunk
I mean,
ape is such a good name. That's amazing. That's just like a dirty Yeti.
And I mean, he's obviously placed right next to classic Bigfoot.
And he walks like classic Bigfoot. Skunk ape rules.
Skunk ape seems a little more awkward.
Skunk ape is Florida man of cryptids.
He's like, hi.
You saw me. Hey. He's got two red eyes like Jerry's saying. Maybe Jerry saw skunk ape. He was on vacation in Scotland.
Man.
Sick. He's sick, man. He's got crazy feet too. Claws. I like him. Well, do we have any callers?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Jerry, thanks again for calling in. Sorry about last night. It didn't work out, but glad it worked this time. Doppelganger stories are weird. That is always a weird thing. I've seen a few.
I'm always like pissed off when someone's like, "Oh yeah, you look like this guy. You look like that." I don't know why.
It's just me. It's just
I'm
me out
I'm
here.
I'm like, no, I don't. If anything, he looks like me. I don't know if that's
Right.
I'm not a vain person, you know, and I'm not very egotistical. So it's like it just seems to me like
It's weird.
it's just like a thing, a natural thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me know if you're like this or not in chat. I'm so confused about it, but at the same time, it just feels right.
The first time I ever did IRL, there was a ton of comments saying that I look like Nicolas Cage.
Oh no!
Now it's all I see. I do see it. They were right. I am Nicolas Cage's doppelganger. So I try to respond with gifs of Nicolas Cage a lot on Twitter because we're doppelgangers. But he's been alive since at least the Civil War. You seen those photos?
No.
Oh yeah, Nick Cage has been around. He fought in the Civil War for show.
Oh my God.
For show. Look it up, people. You'll see.
All right. We are going to digress from that. And we got one more call to get to from last night, and then we will start taking some new people, I promise. I see a lot of you in the waiting room right now, so just hang out.
Thank
bear
you,
with
guys.
us.
Thank you.
Let's get to Up.
Okay.
Hey man, what's up, guys?
What
How
up?
you doing?
Hey, how's it going? This is Goose the Trucker, man. I called in the other night. We talked about some missing time. Remember that?
Oh yeah. How
Yep.
can I forget?
Yeah, man. The girl from Scotland, she touched on a bunch of crazy stuff, man. I wanted to take you guys on a little journey real quick. I've touched a bunch of different subjects, but yeah, I've known about the Black Knight since I think the internet was born. You know, that was like one of the first UFO, like big UFO things
Yeah.
we ever got to
98.
check out.
Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's back in the news.
Yeah. It's
You
a
know,
weird one.
I don't know why we haven't taken a piece of it or send something up there to grab a hunk of it, see what it was.
Yeah. Someone tweet at Elon. Let's just get him up there.
Yeah, like why can't he go grab it?
Just go
the
get
technology.
it. Come on, Elon.
For all we know, he's got a bunch of Starlinks that are following it around. You know,
Yeah.
like because he's got dozens and dozens of these satellites up in orbit now.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
you
he
had to
probably
have
got a Tesla
encountered.
sign on that bitch.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And he's anti-alien. Like he really doesn't think there are aliens out there. He's pretty adamant about it. And he's like, if anyone would know, it would be him because of all this stuff. But I'm like, that's what people would say that are aliens or from a breakaway civilization. But no, we should start hitting him up. You know, like, yo, Elon, please let us know what's up with that Black Knight
Oh
satellite.
yeah.
I'm gonna tweet him right now
Yeah. Yo,
while we're doing this convo
Cool.
here. I'm gonna try to
appreciate
tweet him.
that. Well, Goose, what else is on your mind tonight?
All right, man. Listen, I want to take you guys down. I'm gonna change the mood real quick. So, 2007, my 3-year-old son was in an accident. He drowned. You know, and he lived. He was in a coma for about 15 years, and he passed away a couple years ago.
Oh
So
my goodness.
it's been crazy.
I'm so sorry.
It's been crazy. And so that's just to qualify. I want to talk about trauma and how I think trauma opens people up to either receive or to become more sensitive to things, because I don't know, man. Like I think I'm cursed. Like there's been so much trauma in my life, like, and it's to the point where like the coincidences, they can't be coincidences anymore. You know, like, so like things happen like that can't be coincidence. Like, you know, like I lost my sister to a drug overdose, and to all the people listening out there, I know, you know, that shit touches really close to home with a lot of people, you know? So, I mean, this, you know, she was pretty young, and we're both real spiritual people. You know, we both, you know, practicing Christians. And, you know, you were talking about earlier, you were an atheist, you know, like I lost my faith after my son and my sister passed away. I was on the whole, you know, atheist thing. Like I went real deep, you know, like deep into Hitchens and his buddies, you know, like real deep.
Yeah.
And, and for some reason, things started to happen to me where, you know, like I couldn't explain the coincidence that are happening to me. You know, like I would speak about my sister, I'd speak about my son, and a song would play, and there's other people in the room, other people around that would look at me and be like, holy shit, you know, and it gets to the point where there's so, like, those same people are around, and it happens so many times, and it's not that we're even looking for it, you know what I mean? The shit just happens, you know. And this brings me to a story. Me and my father were sitting on Christmas Eve. My sister passed away on Christmas Eve.
Oh man.
Okay, yeah, it sucks. And my son actually drowned the day of Father's Day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, like I said, man, I'm fucking cursed. So I have really shitty time, you know. But I'm dealing with it, man. Like I'm dealing with it. I'm a fucking recovering addict. I got my shit together.
Oh,
you know, like things are really good.
I'm glad to hear
I can't
that,
even
man.
complain, man.
That's incredible. That's great news.
You know, I changed my whole life around, man. I'm a truck driver. I got an excellent job. I got a great family. I got awesome kids.
I'm happy to hear it, man.
But, you know, so let me get back to this, man. Like things happen to me where I'm talking about, like, a glass will fall. I'll turn and catch it behind my back, and I won't even know how it happened. You know what I mean? Like how, like the weirdest things. I see shit move. Like I was sitting with my father on Christmas Eve, just this past Christmas Eve. Okay, we live in the mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania. Okay, our house is slanted. I don't know if anyone's got a square house in Pennsylvania that lives in the mountains. You know what I mean? A Christmas ball fell off the tree, and rolled all the way across the hardwood floor uphill to me and my father with my sister's name on it on Christmas Eve. Okay, that's on that. What kind of shit is that, man?
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
wild.
up slant. Like
Right.
if you dropped a marble on the floor, it would roll up into the corner. There's all kind of shit in that back corner of the
Yep.
house.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's crazy, man. It's crazy. I know there's probably a million more people are going to jump on this. I know this over coincidences. You know, it's hard to recount how many there are, but it's such a phenomenon with me. Like as soon as I find that when people get hurt, people see crazy things. You know what I mean? If it either shocks the system, shocks your brain into a higher flight, a higher activity rate. You know what I mean? Like that trauma, that jolt of some. I don't know how to describe it, man. But it kind of elevates you. You know, it heightens the senses. I don't know how to describe it anymore.
Trauma becomes
Yeah.
an antenna for people that like makes them pick up or maybe more vulnerable to all these strange things. Like I don't believe in coincidences, you know, and when you
So many coincidences that it's ridiculous.
it's
man.
beyond that. Like
You know?
I think you're experiencing something beyond that. We just can't put it together, right? Whether it's a wink from God or something else. It's just these things are strange. Some people just write them off, and that's fine. But I haven't experienced what you experienced. But, I've had my own network
I mean,
of traumas.
just the Christmas ball was just a. I'm nervous, man. I'm on live with you guys. You know what I mean? I listen to you guys every night, man. I'm a truck driver. Truck driver
man.
community guy is definitely supporting you guys.
We appreciate
everyone I talk to, I'm putting you guys on.
Thank you.
Thanks,
but
Absolutely.
like I think these coincidences there's something bigger. I think there's something beautiful about them.
They're
all the
beautiful to
darkness.
me. They're beautiful to me.
Yeah, you got to cherish those things, man. People write them off, and that's whatever. But there's something there, especially like of all of the ornaments. It was your sister's name, the Christmas Eve connection.
That's insane.
It's insane.
There's nobody else in the house. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And this is just to go, like when my sister passed away, right? I never believed in mediums or none of that shit. I went and sat in on a medium, okay? And as she described it, she said her ability, and I'm a total skeptic of the shit. Absolute 100,000% skeptic of the bullshit medium thing, right? So I'm like, this lady knows everybody who's here. It was a Facebook thing or whatever. She could have easily seen who was here, but she didn't know I was going. She didn't know I was going to show up. But she told me that the way that she received the way she connected with the other side was like a payphone, like people waiting to actually talk in line. So I actually sat down. I was way in the back, and she said, "There's somebody here that's so loud and boisterous that I can't make out. All she's doing is yelling Ryan, Ryan, Ryan," which was crazy. I actually went right to tears in a room full of like 30 girls. And I'm a pretty big dude, man. I'm a pretty big guy.
Yep.
That shit's
is
crazy.
Pretty crazy. I think there are people who are just more susceptible to tapping into that other realm.
But I would have to say, man, like the correlation with trauma and people that experience severe trauma in their life have a higher reception to that. And I don't know, maybe it's something that we got to look further into, man. Guys, thanks for having me. I don't want to take too much more time.
Thanks, man. Well,
All right,
man,
man.
God bless.
You guys.
I'm glad you're doing well. We appreciate the phone
Yeah,
call
man.
as always. We appreciate
You guys
the
keep
support.
doing what you're doing. I love the show, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Have a great
Thanks
night.
for
Thanks, guys.
Wow. Yeah, there's something to it. Trauma does something to people. Trauma, it's like reject victimhood, because in this world we're in, it's like victimhood is still a currency. That's bad. But people can use trauma, learn from trauma, become stronger, become better. It's not that you're forgetting the things that were traumatic. You shouldn't. But you shouldn't let them become you, own you, enslave you, and think that that is all you are. It's not your identity. We're not victims. We are here to learn from those bad experiences, all that dark stuff, and be better and influence other people like we were talking about with Gian. We are going to find a way to put more positivity out there and light amongst all the darkness, despite all the darkness that we have gone through. I mean, look at this guy over here. Brandon told us a story the other day about getting hit by a truck. Would you say hit? Rolled over?
Rolled
I mean,
over.
that was insane. And, you know, you got through it, and you're here doing all this stuff and all the things you've done, sharing music with people, playing music, you know, drummer, doing this stuff. You know, we survived things.
I wasn't supposed to walk again, and I retaught myself how to walk with the help of some medical professionals, obviously, through over the course of the next like year and a half, and recovered in ways that I never was supposed to. You know, and now I'm out here skating with Tim, every day, hanging out, running around, doing all kinds of stupid shit. And I have been through a plethora of other shit past this that was insanely traumatic. 2021 was probably the worst year of my life, for reasons I won't get into right now. But I was in a super, super low place too. And I have to agree, through all the shit that I've been through, trauma is the one thing that did help me grow and made me stronger. And that was, again, through force of sheer will. I am going to come back. I'm going to do this. Maybe call that determinism, call it whatever you want to. But
I think that was your will.
I think it was too.
You willed yourself to heal and become stronger and prove all that stuff that happened to you, that's lesser than you. And here you are in defiance of all of that.
And I implore you guys, keep looking for the right answers. Keep looking for the way out. There's always going to be better times ahead of the worst times. You've just got to find it in little moments like we were just talking about. But don't let the tough shit be the end of you. Find a way to conquer the tough shit, because in the end, that's the best feeling, in my opinion, that you can have.
Yep. And I think this society right now wants you to only be traumatized but not learn from it. And it wants you to be a victim forever. So that's how they can control you. If they know what you fear, they can control you totally with anything we talk about in this show. But, you can name any number of things that they use to instill fear. We talk about the doom economy and all this stuff. We reject that. We are bigger than that. And we will become, better influences to our loved ones and our communities by injecting that lightness throughout all the darkness that's out there. That is just part of human nature. So with that in mind, let's do another caller.
Cool. All right. So we, I think, are for the most part caught up on last night. I want to bring on somebody new here for the sake of variety. You guys change your names on me sometimes in here, and I was talking about this yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to bring on somebody new, and he's like, I call all the time. And I'm like, well, why'd you change your damn name?
By design, dude.
Try to keep the same name if you want me to remember that I've had you on the show before, and if you're just messing around with me, I guess that's fine too. Let's go to Kaylee Miller. Kaylee, you're on Inverted World Live. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's going on?
Hey, I just had a scary story, I guess I'd like to tell.
Yeah, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Sure. So let's start it off with, I was working in a hospital at night shifts. And so at that time, I was about probably like 19. And during this time, I was a CNA, which is a nursing assistant, if you don't know. And during that time, I'll just preface this by saying, like, I was very new to healthcare, and I was very new to death. Like, this was my first experience with death. Like, I had never, like, when somebody dies, you don't really know, like, what's logistics, what happens after that, right? So I was very fortunate in that respect. So anyway, I had this patient who had been on the floor for a couple of days already, and for the nurses kept saying stuff like, she's declining, she's going to pass soon. And this was an elderly woman, so it was kind of like expected. And, sure enough, the next day she did, during night shift, during my shift. And during that time, like I said, I'm new to healthcare, but me and another CNA, we cleaned her up, got the room clean and everything. And just to kind of like say, we left her in the room because, at this time I didn't know what happened to people after they die. Like, but apparently, like, they call the family, and then like a funeral director will come in the morning, that kind of thing. And if I'm rambling too much, please interject.
No, you're good.
This is great. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So, and it was, again, I'm working night shifts. And so I just forget about her. I go back to charting. It's probably like 1 or 2 in the morning at this point. And so things are kind of calm, you know, everybody's sleeping, the nurses are charting or passing meds. So the layout is very important for this part. So we have a nurses station where we would do our charting, and then directly behind the nursing station is a wall, and on the other side of that wall is an elevator. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the patient's hall is directly in front of the nursing station.
Okay.
So during this time, like I said, it's like 1 or 2 in the morning, I'm charting, and I get this very weird, like, fight or flight, like something's off, like this really weird feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like time itself seems to kind of slow for a moment. And when I looked up, I just happened to look up, coming out of like towards the woman that had passed her room was an elderly man dressed like a funeral director. He had a suit on. I mean, he was like, if I could like think about what he looked like, as like the old generic white man, like Bernie Sanders or something, like pushing this. And he was pushing a wheelchair out of the room. And so in this wheelchair was an elderly woman that was kind of like slumped back. And you could tell, like, you could see like her arm like kind of sticking out. And he's coming by me to go towards the elevators, or, you know, in front of the charting room. And over the woman, you can't see the woman at all, because over the woman is like this thick red velvet blanket, like something you would see in a church or something like that. And again, I'm new to healthcare, so I don't think anything of it. I'm just like, okay, I guess that's the funeral director, even though I'm like, had this really weird feeling. And so I stopped charting, and like I'm watching him pass as he's passing me around to go towards the elevators behind me. I'm kind of like stunned. I'm confused. Like, again, everything seems kind of slowed down. And as he passes me, he and I just make eye contact, and he looks just as confused as I do. Like, he kind of like looks up and like kind of like pauses for a minute, like what he was doing. And so obviously, like, I just kind of like nodded, and he acknowledged me with a smile, and like kind of like a polite smile. And so he kept just pushing the elderly woman like around the corner, and then you hear the elevators ding. So I'm like, okay, well, the funeral director took her, right? Well, you know, several hours pass, we're getting closer to shift change, and the nurses were talking like, you know, the funeral director is going to be here soon, blah 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 blah. And so I'm like, oh well, he already came, he got her earlier at 1. And, you know, of course, nurses are like, what are you talking about? And so, you know, they go and check, and obviously the elderly woman, she's still deceased in her bed. And so I'm like, needless to say, I creeped everybody out. But
That's wild.
I think I saw an apparition. I don't know, ghost or what, but I just know it wasn't what it was supposed to be.
A guy kidnapping patients out of the hospital.
Right? I hope not. No.
Did anyone, like, did you have access to the cameras? Were you able to play anything back?
No, we never, like, you know, nobody ever like looked into it like that. You know, like you would, it's not that abnormal to see like people pushing people in wheelchairs. But what was so abnormal is how we acknowledged each other, and like we both seemed like something's not right here. And then again, she's like has this big old velvet, like cushiony, like blanket over her. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail. Did you know anything about her? Was she all alone at the end? Had family? No family?
No, she did have family. You know, and I wasn't there for when they came because I was off the next day. But from what I knew, they were fine, and they knew her. And I don't think this was anybody visiting or anything. It was so abnormal for me.
Like, I wonder if she had a husband that was deceased, you know?
Oh, yeah, you know, I don't know that.
And maybe that was his way of coming to gather her. And you guys saw each other.
Like,
he was startled. You were startled. And you said that was your first experience with death at the hospital?
Correct. Like, you know, I've never known anybody to die. I've never.
Wow.
You know.
So first death in general.
You know.
First death in general.
Correct. I would say death in general. Like, in my life, I had never had any experiences.
Wow. And how long were you there? Was there a lot more death that you experienced, I'd imagine?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot more because I worked as a CNA, but I also worked as like a echocardiogram. So I would go and do like the EKGs, and whenever somebody would code in ICU, and honestly, I didn't really have any experiences there besides that.
That's wild. Yeah, well, that's a pretty vivid one.
That's kind of creepy.
Pretty wild way to experience death for the first time. You see someone taking someone out. Wow. Well,
And I was like, is that my subconscious? Like imagining a Grim Reaper or something, an Undertaker,
right.
or was it?
I mean, some
again, it was so like the weirdest sensation popped up.
some could say, maybe it was your subconscious manifesting something, because it is traumatic to be around a death, especially when it's your first one.
Oh, especially when you're working,
That-
15
at those
to
hours.
24-hour shifts,
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you get 8 hours off and a week piles up on you, and the
But
next thing
then-
you know, you're seeing shit in the hallway.
But then others would say,
Yeah,
others could say,
I
we
was
take what we
pretty
just talked
young and
about.
spry, so I mean, I wasn't like, exhausted all the time.
Right. But then we just talked to someone, Goose, the truck driver,
Yes.
about trauma.
And,
And you could say, maybe for those who say it was just you manifesting something, but like what we said to him or about his story is like, perhaps that trauma opened up some antenna in you to perceive something strange that,
right,
none of
that's
us could explain.
entirely possible.
But, well, I appreciate the phone call. That is a wild one. And yeah, hope you have a good night.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of
Thanks,
course.
Kelly.
Thanks for the call. The red blanket is quite the detail. I wonder where she was taken.
Oh,
The ghost
isn't
funeral director.
isn't like red indicative of hell?
I was hoping it wasn't hell for the nice lady. I don't know her. Her family seem to love her. But
Because it sounds like something you'd see in like a Scorsese movie or something, where this
Yeah.
guy in a freaking hat comes in and he's like,
Yeah.
and then he just walks through the wall with the
Right.
wheelchair, and you're like,
and the red would be a symbol of something darker,
mm-hmm.
something more sinister. I hope not for that old lady's sake. But that is a grim image. This elderly man dressed like a funeral director, wheeling out the dead lady towards the elevators, past the nursing station, with a heavy red blanket.
I'm good on all that.
Yep.
My friends, my children of the night, like, subscribe, follow, share the show with everyone you know. The call-in link, for the people wondering, should be pinned at the top of the chats on both Rumble and on YouTube. If you do not see it for some reason, let me know. I will repost it. But we are going to try to keep rolling. You got anything else you want to cover here? Because we got about 10 people to get to in about 30 minutes.
Holy moly, people. This is amazing. I just want to say I'm so grateful for you all. And I'm sorry we won't get to everyone tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow night, and we'll try to get more. Brandon's been great at taking down names and trying to get those people we missed the night before in on the first few callers the next night. So apologies already in advance for that. But I am just extremely grateful. The callers are great. You guys are awesome. The support has been amazing. We are both extremely grateful. So thank you guys. Well, let's go to another caller.
And to Elijah, my hat says socks, not sex. But thank you for the imagination there, bud.
Now I see it. Now I see
You
it.
can't unsee it.
He's not wrong.
Can't unsee it. Good old Chicago lore.
White
right.
sex.
So,
Sorry.
was that racist? Or was it
I don't think so. I said it, so could have said cracker. I won't.
crack sacks? All right.
Okay, that's enough Hunter Biden jokes.
Yeah, let's get out of that. Let's get. I want to go to Jeremy B because I think actually he might have been in there last night too, and I missed. And I think he might have got out of there before I took names down. So I'm gonna bring him on.
Cool.
Jeremy, what's up? You're on IWL. Jeremy B.
Well, while we wait for Jeremy, I just want to say this is my notebook I've been using since the beginning, and it's almost full. And this is just pages of notes from your guys' stories that I take.
When you say beginning, are you talking about episode 51 or are you talking about episode 1?
Episode of this 50, like this new schedule.
So okay, so since 51.
So 51, yeah. There are 2 pages in the beginning that I used for the election night down at the Daily Wire, and after that, it was empty, and I've just been filling with the notes from callers, and it's like a whole book. So I am shocked. I have a few pages left. So thanks. I like to revisit these pages and open up and just be like, oh yeah, look at that.
Speaking of revisit, we're going to come back to Jeremy. I don't think he's here.
Thanks, Jeremy. If you hear us, we will come back to you.
All right, let's go to Highway to Self-Love.
Okay. Look at that positivity.
Wrong one. I'm screwing the buttons up today.
That's all right.
I need to be scolded.
There will be a struggle
on
session.
Inverted World Live. What is up? If you can hear me, please unmute your mic.
Please unmute. We are here. It is 11:36 somehow at night. I can't believe that. And we're waiting on, what is it? Highway to Self-Love?
Highway to Self-Love.
Better than Highway to Hell.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, just barely.
You're distant. Are you in this dimension?
I think my Bluetooth tried to connect. Let me mute. Well, I guess I don't have to because it shows it's paused on YouTube. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
That's
How are
all
you
good.
guys?
We're good. How are you?
Doing all right. I just kind of wanted to touch on the fact of I guess 2 callers before it was a gentleman talking about, how he felt like kind of alone through that journey he was going through. The one talking about determination and I guess the difference between determination and spiritual type of journey that he was going back and forth on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Gian. Yep.
So I kind of have like my own journey. Like for the last 5 years, I've been on kind of like a journey of self-discovery. Growing up as a child, I was a really big people pleaser. I went through a lot of, verbal abuse, mental, emotional, everything. And so I was always trying to be whoever, I guess the version of whatever person I felt was important in my life. I was always trying to be that version that I felt they expected me to be.
Right.
And then around 2020, I guess, during COVID, which I'm sure this happened for a lot of people, but it became kind of like a moment in which God took some truth goggles and just smacked them on me. And it was like everywhere I looked, I couldn't go along with like whatever this facade was of this version of myself that I've been kind of like existing in forever. And I have been working in the medical industry for a really long time as a coder, and I loved what I did, but I just always felt really bored and kind of limited. And during COVID, the stress level went up really high because, physicians, I was coding for like 35 physicians, and they were always seeing like really high amounts of patients in the beginning, and then COVID comes in and there's social distancing going on. So the numbers drop significantly, which means the money that they're used to bringing in isn't there. And during this time, I started to realize, man, even in the medical industry, the focal point is more about the money than the patient care. And the stress level got so intense, I was just like, gosh, I've got to do something, with all of this negativity, that's coming around me all the time from work. And so I started, walking the stairs at my job like 3 times a day, starting from walking to running. And then it was almost like synchronistically, everything just started coming together and kind of like started to wake up, I guess. And just a little backstory real fast. Back in 2017, Lyft came to the town where I live, and both of my kids were in traveling sports at the time. And I wanted to kind of like give myself a financial buffer because that stuff's really expensive. And so I decided to pick up Lyft as like a part-time gig in the evenings and the weekends. And I really loved it. Like I met so many wonderful people. I made great connections, and, it was kind of fun just doing my own thing, no boss or coworkers to have to deal with.
Yep.
And so fast forward back to around 2020, when I started, realizing so many truths around me. I remember saying, gosh, there's got to be more to life than this for me. This cannot be all there is. And all of a sudden, I started hearing this little voice trying to encourage me just to drive. And logically, I'm arguing with it because it was a time in which everything in our town, was kind of shutting down. It's a big city, but we do have a military base nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why Lyft and Uber ended up becoming, part of the community, was because it's a training base. So a lot of them don't have vehicles.
Right.
And so I decided, the louder this voice got, after I was arguing with it for so long, it got to a point to where I almost didn't I might be missing myself.
We just
But I
lost.
was so
Hey, real quick,
terrified
sorry,
because
we
my whole
lost.
life.
We lost the last few words of yours. You cut out. Oh no. If you can hear us,
Did we lose her altogether?
if you can hear us, you cut out right after talking about the military base and needing the Lyft and Ubers for the training and all that, and maybe we lost you. I was very interested in seeing
Can
where
you
that
hear
was
me
going.
now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Must be Verizon.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you, and if you can hear us, you can go right back to where you left off with the Lyfts and Ubers at the training base. Oh man, I was totally relating to so much.
I think she might just be having some signal issues.
Okay. Well,
So what?
oh,
Can you
man.
hear me?
Yeah,
You
you
keep-
keep cutting out.
Yeah.
Are you
I'm
on the
so
move?
sorry.
Are you driving a Lyft right now? Through the
No. I'm actually that's the most wonderful part about this journey, is because I actually ended up starting my own transportation business.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
for you.
Congrats.
But thanks. But kind of to move back, I was always so afraid, to take my own leap of faith, because I had been under, this illusion that I was always supposed to be this version for, everyone else in my life that I felt had, I guess, like more value than me. My parents, my siblings, my grandparents, and even some of my friends. And one day I couldn't fight that voice anymore. I couldn't leave it alone. And so, I basically just kind of like had a conversation with God, the universe, whatever your higher power is. And I was just like, if you can just promise me that somehow, some way, you'll bring me enough opportunity to at least just be able to pay my bills and have a little bit left over, I won't focus on the fear of, whether or not I'm going to make money. I'll focus on, the experiences I'm going to have, the changes I'm going to go through, the memories I'm going to make, the people I'm going to meet, how else I can be more of a helper than just, picking people up and dropping off. And so a couple of months after that, I finally just decided to leave. I kind of devised my own schedule with Lyft of like the best times of the day in which to work, as far as like not wasting time or gas or anything. And they shut down for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And here in our, sorry?
You said the military base shut down?
Yeah, you cut out.
So the military base shut down due to COVID. And, when you're driving for Lyft, that's your biggest fare in town, because everybody else, it's not a very big town. So most of the locals are only going like 1 to 3 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And on average, when you're driving for Lyft, that right there is only going to be about $2.81 a ride. So you've got to do a lot of those, to really make a difference.
Right.
So when that happened, of course, I was really, really worried, because that was, kind of like my bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
And something, wonderful was, because I decided not to allow, fear to control me anymore, because I felt like, this was, I guess, like my awakening, or whatever you want to call it. And because I felt so strongly about it, I wasn't going to give up. I kept telling myself, if this doesn't work out, I'm great at what I do, and I know I can get hired somewhere else. So one night I was driving, and I got a request to go pick up a passenger from a place. And it was him and his friend, and he got in first. His friend was inside. And we were chit-chatting, waiting on him, and come to find out, I grew up with his cousin where I'm from in the state, just about 45 minutes to an hour north of us. So that's like one crazy thing that happened. So back then I would hand out my business card to everybody, and about 2 weeks after I dropped them off, he called and offered me, like a second driving gig, picking up titles and dropping off checks, because they were buying and selling.
We keep losing you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're losing her again.
Sorry, I guess it's just kind of where I'm at. What was the last thing you heard?
Driving for titles.
Okay, no. So I was basically picking up titles for them
Mm-hmm.
and dropping off checks for cars that they were buying and selling at auction. Because, a lot of people were losing their jobs during COVID. And so that kind of market, just became really fast, and, he couldn't keep up with it. So he hired me to do that. And then a little bit later, he offered me a position to drive delivering medical specimens to a hospital down in Dallas. So between that, the title and check thing, and then I had about this time about 15 clients I would pick up, in the mornings and take to work, and then take back in the evening time. And that was the craziest thing, is because between all of that, I always had enough money to pay my bills and a little bit left over. Like that, the career part was the easiest part. The hardest part was like the soulful part, the soulful change that I had to go through. It was almost like leaving the medical industry. I slammed the brakes on my life, and everything that was in the past just like came full frontal. And I had no idea, like how to create change in my life. Because, whenever all you've lived is what you know, it's really difficult trying to step out of that and finding a direction in which to, start on a new path. And so I started taking my Instagram and I turned it into a tool for myself, because, it's set up different than Facebook. And everything on my Instagram was anything to do with the mind, the body, the soul, everything that was interconnected and how it all works. So I went as far as, anything about astrology to physiology to kinesiology, psychology, anything that I felt would help me get out of this pattern my brain had been so used to living in. That's what I did. So every day I would go on there, and just basically educate myself and how I could take control over my brain. And something I realized is the brain is like a 2-year-old toddler. It's always running amok up there, just always trying to get its way, even if it's going to make us, sabotage ourselves, or it's something that's not healthy for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I realized is, when you're living through your heart, everything there is of goodness. It's a sense of purity, I guess. And this one quote, that's always stuck with me is best interest at heart. So this journey kind of sent me down on this way where I had to separate the brain from the heart. And I had to go in really deep, and deal with all the trauma I went through as a child. And I had to learn to sit with all the pain that was trying to come full frontal. And that was like literally the hardest part, because when you carry so much pain, it's like the longer you're alive, the more you go through. And then if you don't deal with that stuff, then it's like when it finally hits you, it just seems like it's so overwhelming, you're not going to be able to handle it. But I truly believe, by the grace of God, that him and I tend to believe that my grandmother was with me on this journey too. But I truly believe that I was meant to go through all of that so I could finally find myself, like hence the screen name Highway to Self-Love, because it's literally like starting that journey with driving full time with Lyft is what brought me to understand, the importance of self-love, the value of self-worth, and the importance of, self-respect.
Well,
But like
I,
fast forward real quick, and
Yeah.
then I'll let you go, because I'm
yeah.
sorry, I don't want to take
it's
up a lot
okay.
of the time, because I know there's other people. But from that, the base opened back up, and I got lucky enough to be introduced to 2 different sergeants on that base. And one of them gave me an idea to create a flyer for myself. And like fast forward, I was lucky if I could do like 10, Dallas Fort Worth rides, or Dallas Love, or Oklahoma City rides in a month. And now I do an average of 68 to 75 a
Wow.
month.
Wow. That's
And
incredible.
sorry, go ahead.
That's incredible. And you started this conversation by referencing the earlier caller Gian about free will and determinism, and it's an example of someone who's broken out of that pattern to start something new. I think that's a good example.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the one thing, is like being on this journey where you're trying to, discover yourself. You're having to create so many new changes that you're losing everything that, was once associated with that older version of yourself. So even people, you thought were really close, you were really close with, you start to realize that, the role that they played in your life wasn't necessarily what you thought it was. That most times than not, depending on what you're going through, it's they're there for that moment of who you are, and in most cases it's you putting out more to them than they're giving back to you. So it became like literally a complete like death and rebirth of the self. And even today, I'm still on that journey, still learning, to be true to myself. But I think the most important thing for people is, once you have self-love, once you have self-respect, and you understand, the concept of self, you become your true north, which prevents you from being put in,
If you can hear us, we're losing you again. I am sorry, but I appreciate that, because that is inspirational and it's good for people to hear. If you're hearing us, because we have lost you, and we'll probably have to get to another caller now. I'd like to try to do one more caller before we leave.
yeah, that's no problem.
But if you're hearing, okay, you're there. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's a nice way to put the earlier caller in a broader context, and hopefully get some inspiration to him and others out there in similar instances that feel like they can't break a pattern. Is totally, you're capable of breaking that pattern. Sometimes it feels impossible, but COVID changed everything, and I think in for the better in a lot of ways, despite all the things that came with it. So again, thanks for calling in and sharing that, and congrats on starting this business and doing so well.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good night.
You too.
You too.
COVID was a blessing, despite all the bad stuff that we went through. And, I know people, there's someone who's I've been talking to on Twitter. I've met him, got severely injured by these things they were making people take. And at some point, he might call in. He's got his own story. It's not about that. But even he finds, all hope and lightness in these things that happened throughout COVID and the way all of our lives changed. So I totally can relate to that, and also having a career change big time during COVID. But let's try to get to one more caller.
Yeah, I just want to say really quick that I thought that there was going to be some crazy turn there somewhere in that story.
When she said the guys got in the car, I was getting a little worried.
Yeah, and when she started talking about sergeants, I thought she was going to say one of them was Peyton.
I also thought
I was
that.
like,
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. So false alarm, we're good.
I mean, she didn't say it wasn't Peyton, and she was in Texas.
I guess we're gonna have to ask him when we get him for the interview next week.
Yep.
Oh my God! All right, so you want to try to get to one more?
Yeah, I'll try to get to one more.
Okay.
You guys have been waiting. I feel bad. We'll try one more, and we'll call it a night after that.
Cool. All right. Let's bring on. I want to bring on Operator Mick.
Okay.
This is either a truck driver or somebody trained in military background, I would say. Just a rough guess.
Yeah.
Mick, you're on Averted World Live. What's up?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep. Welcome to the show.
What's up?
This is going to be really strange. Hey, Shane, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Okay, guys, I know you guys don't have all night. I'm surprised how many people you had on here. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
It's been crazy.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick and short. Shane, I know especially you're going to get excited when I'm about to say,
Okay.
so bear with me.
I'm ready.
Going forward, my name is Operator Mick for a reason. Before this phone call, you guys inspired me to share some stuff. I talked to my lawyer, and I went over my NDAs before I made this phone call.
Oh boy.
I am what you would call a spook.
Oh boy. Hello.
Yeah, right. Where to start?
Do you wanna-
guys, it's all real.
Do you want to tell people what that means? A spook?
Without going over my NDAs, a spook is somebody who makes things disappear for the verse of the deep state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not talking about magic here.
No.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify for the listeners.
If anybody knows about the Majestic 12 and what I'm about to go into, that was my world for 13 years. It is very real. You guys, it's all real. Bigfoot, Dogman, it's all real. I'm going to be honest. I've been watching IRL for many years, and then Shane, when you started this, I was curious, and I just one night just started watching you guys, and I'm like, you know what, I think it's time for me to start speaking. I've had friends who are on the whistleblower list in Congress, who have been slowly coming forward. I'm yet. The reason why I hide my name in that way is I'm not there yet on the public sphere. Now I'm retired. I started out as a Marine recon unit. So a lot of people don't know. So basically my job, by the time I was picked up through contracting, long story short, would be mercenary. The way, basically my job, just to fast forward, because I can always make other phone calls to you guys, but you guys have inspired me to speak, and I'm going to speak today.
Okay, let's hear it, man.
My job title would be called a STAG, a Strategic Tactical Armament Garrison. Our job was to neutralize special cryptids and capture and retrieve, basically a retrieval unit. I have met over 3 different species of hominids, of Bigfoots. I can tell you regions of the country where some are very aggressive. That's why you have missing 411 cases, and some that aren't. In other areas, I was more specialized, if you ever heard of the rake. So a lot of people don't understand where a lot of these cryptids come from. These are slice geno projects. That's why you have so many 411 missing cases, is that when it comes to the alien situation, this is a playing ground for them. And people don't understand that. And so the geopolitical sphere that you see in the underworld would be called the black sphere of the world, meaning, deep state and things that are going on, going back even to archaeological digs. Like, for example, just to pinpoint, one of the earliest UFOs we have actually gathered, it was going back as 1901. That's as far back. And that was in the Sahara Desert.
When Teddy Roosevelt was president.
Yeah, like we're going back far. Now you have to understand where a lot of this comes from. At the time they didn't know what was going on, what it was when they found it. And the reason why during World War II, well, actually New Mexico in the 40s, when the first and the Roswell crash, things started to make sense because the ship was still operational when it was shot down by the EMP blast. And so a lot of these things were held up into to old school, DUMBs, deep underground bunkers. So now just to circle back, my job was to hunt. Basically, when they had a containment outbreak, they would send us. That would be the terminology would be spook.
And what does that mean? Containment outbreak, something that they've been working on that got out of a lab?
It means what the higher ups, meaning the extraterrestrials were playing with, got out.
Oh, okay.
And we would contain. Like I said, I can't go any more than that.
Okay.
All I'm going to say is I've got a lot of stories for you guys. And I say this with a heavy heart because I have lost friends because of this, meaning they've died.
Can you say how you were hired?
Yes. So after Iraq and Afghanistan, so basically you take a special test. They look for, so basically USSF guys, when they're looking for certain protocol testing, they sent you through rigorous various of requirement testing. They don't tell you what. So when you go into the contracting field, they don't really tell you what the jobs are. When you go to test, that you're just trying to get contracted by the best corporation. And so when you're going in and you're taking the testing, a lot of the times they look for certain aptitudes of your knowledge. What are you good at? Are you, in this case, me and a couple other guys are considered supernatural in a sense, not like we're special in that way or anything like that, meaning we have a very innate ability to track and to hunt things. And that's what made us so good at, Marine recons and things like that, special forces and, Army Rangers. It's our ability to track things and to neutralize the containment of the unit.
Well,
so
can you say what? Can you say like what was your first job?
Yes, actually. So this is where it gets really crazy. One of my first jobs, I was expecting to go out of the country, and this is where it gets weird. I was already actually, you know what? Let me backtrack just a little bit. I'm going to tell you when training started, and this is where it gets weird. This was out near Quebec, northern Canada. This was during training. And here's why this leads into the first contract. For 6 weeks, they put you out in the middle of nowhere, and you're monitored the whole time. My sergeant at the time was like, hey, you're going to go down there. They just want to see how you do by yourself in the cold. And out of nowhere, he hands me my gun. He says, hey, no one's listening right now, but 3 guys have died down there. And I'm looking at him going, what? And he goes, there's something down there, and they are probing, and they want you to find out what it is, but they don't want to tell you that. I get dropped out there. By the third night, again, this is supposed to be training. This is my introduction to into this world. By the third night, nothing happens around the campfire. I'm in the middle of the forest. A large moose-looking head with red and yellow eyes, basically it's interchanging, is staring at me for at least a couple yards. I grab my rifle and I literally stared right at it. This thing stood up like 15 feet tall. I'm going, I don't know if are we allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah, it's late enough.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if we're allowed or not. I know YouTube rules, but S word.
That's fine.
Yeah. I start laying down rounds because Marine mentality, shoot first, ask questions later. So I start laying down fire, and I get my radio. I said, guys, there's something down here. No chatter back, nothing. Now, luckily that thing ran off. Luckily, so just to fast forward a couple weeks later into the 6 weeks, I get heloed out, and they told me, they said, welcome to the team. You have done well in during introduction. That was a Wendigo. And I'm going, what? And they said, yeah, that is what we call a class 4. And I'm like, a class 4? And they said, yes, they're very violent. And no, the old versions you hear from the Navajo Indians and all these things, it's that, yes, that they are somewhat true, but it is more in depth than you think on the extraterrestrial side. These are containment units that have been released. A lot of people think meaning in the deep state, we believe that it's like a plague that these extraterrestrials have released on our planet. But a long story short, that was a class 4. So different classes, meaning a class 1 is a less violent, like you would get like a Sasquatch or in a way like a goat man. Now, I've never seen a goat man before. I mean, I've heard talks, but that's beyond me. I've never seen one. And then being the field I was in, that one's like that's like the Mothman thing. I don't know. But I will tell you, I have a class 5 would be a dog man.
Okay.
That is a real species.
And you've seen
They
those?
are very violent. I've personally watched a whole unit get slaughtered on camera. They are very territorial. And here's what's scary about this. Every time there has been an outbreak, spheres and certain types of UFOs will appear from these extraterrestrials, usually around containment hubs, which mean like a base. A lot of the whistleblowers, you're hearing them talk about this stuff, like St. Helen, the water under Catalina, a lot of these places. And yes, I have been to the base under Catalina.
What's
I
there?
have been there.
Can you say what's there?
I could tell there's tunnels. I can tell you that. There's tunnels, massive tunnels the size of a 747.
And
they're going all across the country.
And has this been going on? You mentioned 1901 with contact. Is that
so?
As early
1901 was in an archaeological dig.
Okay.
So I actually, really close friend of mine, when I was able to at least share some of this with him when the time was right, he's like, how come you're involved so much? And I said, this is what people don't understand. They think, by the way, I love Tim. Tim is an amazing guy. But when he gets to this topic, and I understand he's not in this world when I lived it for 13 years, literally. Tim doesn't understand the geopolitical situation of this world. Everything going on when it comes to money, oil. The reason why we went into Iraq was not what people think. This goes so much deeper than people really think. And people think, oh, this is just there's no way there's a global entity at that level. How could they hide it so well? And see, here's the problem: is there has been thousands of whistleblowers and leaks over the years, and many have been murdered.
So are you saying that these wars are the way we perceive them? They're not the official story is not true, which I believe that. But that there is a deeper evil happening that's within our government, within other governments, and are we fighting that evil, or is it evil versus evil, entities versus entities?
And so by the time I hit my 13th year, let's just say I had to pay a price to get out. I married with multiple children. I wanted out, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be real. You get tired of watching children's bodies be basically ripped apart by a creature that people don't understand what's out there.
And where are you seeing this?
Dog man. It could be a lizard man. Yes, lizard people are real. They are very real.
And our government has video of this, you say?
Yes. A lot of it. Yes.
Do you think we're getting close? If this is all going down and we have all these whistleblowers happening, do you think we're any closer to disclosure?
We are very close. Yes. I'll tell you this. So from my contacts, because I'm still involved enough to talk with the guys I know, and a lot of them are saying something. All I know is something big is coming for disclosure. Not crazy, not destructive. I know you've heard all the people online saying 2030 or 2028, or 2026. What I do know is there's a massive civil war going on in the deep state. By the time I left, so the Majestic 12 is real. Dick Cheney was one of them. So a couple of the senators, a lot of people speculate that Senator Rubio, before he went to the Trump administration, is part of the Majestic 12 now. If I remember correctly, one of the members passed away of old age, and retook his place. This is why people don't understand is that there is a galactic federation. They are very real. This has been going on a long.
And you believe that they're extraterrestrials, or do you believe that they're demons?
So here's what's strange. I know everyone's going to be like, "What?" I am a believer in Jesus Christ. I am a Christian. I am a born again believer. But I am going to tell you, because I have seen them face to face, and I have spoken to 2 alien species myself. One of them was telepathic. Yes, that is very real. This situation, guys, extraterrestrials are not demons. They are completely separated. And now here's the strange thing. It was called Project Scarab. Also, Project Prometheus was another one, but the names change over so many years after it gets leaked. The government tries to pivot, just so you don't track it very well. So at the time, for me, it was Project Scarab. That demons are real. That realm of Satan is very, very real. But these are 2 separate entities. People, they get them mixed up so much.
Would you say that these
separated?
Would you say these creatures are demonic?
In some cases, no. The way they function, they are atom slicing. So a lot of the abductions that happen in the United States and around the world, especially like in Guatemala and other places in Brazil, you see there. So a lot of people understand. So when Truman, and I think it was also Eisenhower, when the pacts were signed, that really did happen. That those aliens were on that base, and that very famous photo you see of Eisenhower shaking hands, that was a real photo.
So for those listening who don't know what you're talking about, you're referencing this idea that Eisenhower signed a sort of treaty with extraterrestrials, I believe the Greys, to allow them to abduct people up until a certain point, though, right? Wasn't it supposed to stop according to the legend?
It was supposed to, but so Shane, you got to remember something. When you have a certain amount of power, can we really ever stop them?
No. If
exactly.
All that's so,
and so that's really the issue.
What did you talk to the extraterrestrials about?
No, so a lot of people think we had phone conversations. It's not like that. A lot of the time, it's using energy pulse weapons. Either they shot down. So here's what it gets going to get strange for you guys. Each galaxy is a center hub. There's a planet in each galaxy that is like a doorway to like if you're skipping a rock on water. And the best way I ever heard this from a scientist from one of the science groups from this off of the skips or skim is what they would call them underground as well. One of the scientists ever explained to me when I was on guard duty, think of a Rubik's Cube and you bend it like a pretzel. That is how they are skipping from universe to universe.
So
basically, galaxy to galaxy.
So interdimensional, coming in and out of.
In a way, it's not really time travel. What they're doing is that so each planet has a doorway in a sense of a gravitational pull, and so when they're doing this, it's hard to explain because like if I had a whiteboard, I mean it's very hard to explain at first, but it's when you start breaking it down, it makes sense. It's actually very basic in its form. So when this so just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when you come to Earth, each planet is a hub of control. From my understanding, the United States is involved in a proxy war amongst other civilizations. We are just caught in the middle.
For how long has it been going on?
We don't know, because you have to remember there's so many. This is very true. Like I said, I have come across 2 species personally, but many other witnesses more than me that have confirmed because of the federal, side of things, and also the Federation is very real with that. People said it's up to 70 species. At that point, these are guys going all the way back to the 50s.
Can you talk about your personal experience with extraterrestrials? What you talked about?
So a lot of it is very nuanced. What I can say is they weren't frightened. One of them did tell me, "I understand." That's all I kept saying. I understand, and I knew what they meant. That I am just a soldier. I'm doing what I'm told.
Why were you there? Were you there to neutralize
their ship
them?
was shot down by another ship.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, this is a war zone, meaning there are greater things at play right now. This is why Lou Elizondo, David Grush, this is why a lot of these guys, this is why they keep telling everybody that the nuances of this it's very complicated. because people don't understand what's happening. That this is way more depth geopolitically than people think. This isn't just like flipping a switch.
And you think that we should trust someone like Lou Elizondo?
To a certain degree. I'll tell you this, because of certain NDAs, let me actually touch on that real quick, because people get frustrated. I've watched this firsthand online. I've watched people get frustrated with this, where they say, oh, why doesn't he just spill everything now? Forget NDAs. And people need to understand that when these NDAs are being written up, it's by a lawyer. When the lawyer writes up the NDA from the Pentagon, and the lawyer is not going to know every single thing about that operation. That's why when a spook or somebody is able to speak about some stuff and not others. And that's why people, the nuances of that, people don't understand that, the Pentagon is kind of lazy in that way, honestly. And that's why we can talk about some things and not others without vitalizing our classified clearance, a lot of that stuff. So when it comes to NDAs with Lou Elizondo, if he's telling the truth or not, I think he's doing the best he can for what he's given. Yeah, so this is where, because you have to remember, like lawyers, they're not going to give you a straight shot of paperwork to go, okay, cool, I know what I can say now. It's not that easy.
I hear you.
That's why
I've seen him share.
When we coincide and talk to them, we have to ask them every time, because it's always different.
I've seen him share things that have turned out to be false. That's why I have a hard time believing things that he says.
So I'm going to tell you this. Who said it was false?
I think he came out later. He came out later and apologized for sharing one of them.
So I have watched some guys get bullied into certain stuff to say things. Just be careful what you read and what you see. People need to understand there's a lot of people out in the game. I would call this is what I'm going to use. It's called the hustle. People need to understand how much of your media is bought out, even in government. I mean, people think, why do you think there's billions of dollars missing from the Federal Reserve? Guys, this is to pay off a lot of people. And this is why. And I'm not saying Lou Elizondo. I don't know the man. I've never met him. I've just known people personally that have, at least had a conversation. I don't know. All I know is what I can speak is for myself. And being on these task force teams, basically, I would call myself a grunt. I'm a rifleman, but in that division, doing the hard work on the ground.
Well, I appreciate you calling in. I'd imagine this is not the last time we talk to you. I'd appreciate if you call back. We go further down. I have a bunch of different questions for you.
I got a lot of stories, man.
I think you. I'd appreciate if you call back.
I'd like to ask you. Holding back from calling because I just, like I said, I had to talk to my lawyer, and I just said, is this okay for me, for my family? And he gave me the okay.
I'd like to ask,
just keep it simple. But
well, I'd like to ask this before you go. Can you say what the price was that you had to pay to leave?
I guess in a way, the price really was, without saying anything confidential, I had to do one last job, and it wasn't a bad job. It was people thought it was unthinkable to do. It was protecting. I was actually protecting people, and I got it done. Let's just say I neutralized a very dangerous threat. And I got it done.
Okay. Well, I would appreciate you call back. We got some, I think we have a lot more to talk about. I appreciate that you want to share these stories. I think it's pretty wild stuff. Like this idea of the black sphere. I do think there's evil that has taken over the world. I think it's been that way for quite some time.
There is. Yeah.
I know there's obviously way more going on than we know to believe. You sound like you've been part of some Marine / Van Helsing situation.
Hey, honestly, man, I know. Did you not the first one to joke about that? Dude, honestly, man, it's people think that way. It's not like that though. It's very straightforward. It really is what it is. And the government's known about this for a long time. They're very involved. Honestly, It's why do you think there's such PR attacking all these stories? Why do you think they call you loons? Why do they call you this? It's very real, guys.
What do you think? What do you think about the Boogosphere?
I will tell you this: the writing on the sphere looks accurate. That's all I'm going to say.
To what?
It
Can you
it
say?
looks accurate.
To
Now, so let me actually tell you this before you guys go with the Beluga So I've encountered this on the ground. I've heard Jake Barber talk about this, some other guys. You have to remember, because there's a war going on, in a sense. We would consider a war between other species on other planets. What is happening is that they are leaving little tokens, little gifts on the ground, as Jake Barber said. It's basically as if for us to advance ourselves, to know the existence that they're there.
Interesting. Because I have a hard time with the Boogosphere.
I do too. It's like same thing with the mummies. That it's like I said, somebody who's seen them personally and alive. It's a different view. I'll say that it's definitely it's very entertaining.
Because I'm sure there's people listening right now who'd say, "Oh, what if the spook is calling to inject more extraterrestrial propaganda into the show?" And you've been sent.
Dude, I know people say once a spook, always a spook.
It's worth. It's you can't discount it,
you guys.
You
There's a lot of good men and women, guys, who are wanting this to come forward, guys. I know everyone's listening right now. Please hear me out, guys. I'm not here to push anybody a certain way. I'm just trying to tell you guys it's time for people to know.
Well,
Like I said, when you see so many people disappearing, and when you know what's happening to them, this is why the government doesn't want necessarily to say this, because it's a trail of blood. And what do you do when the killers, but basically the person who's propagated the killing, their hands are dirty.
Are there
government?
Are there non-human entities in politics right now?
I can't answer that. I'm not allowed to.
I'm going to say that's a yes.
I'll tell you, you might be close. I'm not allowed. Is there a organization coinciding with them? I will say yes. Like I said, it's not that people have to understand with NDAs. It's not that they're not asking. It's just they're not asking the right questions.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to end it right there. That's fair. I appreciate it. Operator Mick, first time caller. You got a lot to say. A lot of wild stuff we're going to get into. Please do call back. We will get into it further, and appreciate it, man. Thanks for the phone call. Good luck.
You guys have a great day.
Take care.
Well, didn't expect the night to take that swerve.
I don't know about that one, Shane.
I got more questions.
There's a lot of holes in the story. He called it the Belugosphere.
The Belugosphere.
There's, I don't know. There's, for me, I mean, everybody gets their day in court. I'm going to give him his fair shot to pull some of this apart in the future when we talk to him. But right now, I am very, very on the fence about almost everything that we just talked about.
I think we should be. That's why I said it in the end. People are also sent to sway narratives, stories. But there's something, he sounded convicted, and I'd like to hear more. I like how you have more reservations about him, but not Peyton.
I haven't gotten into my reservations with the sergeant yet. I have plenty of them as well, so maybe I should start jotting this stuff down. But you guys know me, I'm a skeptic.
As we should be.
I'm always going to be skeptical, and especially when these people aren't coming forward with direct proof. That's my biggest damn thing. If you're shooting these things in the wild, take a goddamn picture. I mean, I get not being able to declassify, I get NDAs, I get all of that stuff. But when it comes right down to it, there's got to be something you can offer, while, not offering everything at the same time. So I don't know. That's just
what
me.
I do know is evil is on this planet, and it takes many forms. Maybe some of these things that he's talking about were created too. Maybe he said that, or maybe he was saying that these things are experimenting on us. But I'm happy to hear more. I love calls like that. And I'm curious what the audience thinks about that. And if you have questions for Operator Mick, you should leave comments for us to ask him next time he calls in, because you guys know what's up. And I appreciate all the comments you leave already. So let's end it there. Didn't expect it to go that way, but I'm glad it did. Brandon, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on X and Insta at Brando Inverted. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate everybody in chat. Again, like, subscribe, follow, share the show with everybody, and don't forget to stay weird.
I just remembered that when I stepped out of my car on the way into the studio, I almost stepped on a skunk, and I hope it's gone now.
Was it
it wasn't a skunk ape.
Skunk ape?
It wasn't a skunk ape.
Damn it.
But it was big. I'm like, man, it did not spray me, thankfully. But thank you guys for calling. Appreciate it. Apologies to those we didn't get to. We will hopefully get to tomorrow. We'll be back here at 10 o'clock. And you can find me everywhere online at Shane Cashman. Hit me up. If you got stories, give us a call tomorrow. We'll see you then. Have a good night. Bye.